Hey, you empowered human. It is Nina Garcia here. Welcome to Triggered. Can we play with that wherever you get your podcasts? And of course, I am wanting to know, can we play with it? Today's episode is going to invite you to lean into your edge on, drumroll please, human beings that human differently than you. I know, I said it. Yes, in this episode, because it is in the privacy of your own home, and even I will not know what it is you are leaning into, I actually want to invite you to ask yourself, where in my life am I feeling uncomfortable with a very particular type of human being? I don't understand it. Maybe I was given negative stories about it. Maybe I was told I couldn't trust this type of human, right? Or the way that this person humans, whatever the case is. In this episode for today, I actually want you to label what that facet of humanity is so that we can explore how to get you feeling more comfortable in your own body when you engage with this different kind of human. Now, that can mean a lot of things, folks. It can be literally a human being who has a different socioeconomic status, political orientation, religious faction. Maybe they are of a different race, ethnicity, gender. It doesn't matter what facet you choose. Today's skill is going to work either way. But seriously, today's skill is going to work no matter which way you swing it. So I want to invite you in the privacy of you and your own world with you to label what that is for you so that we can explore it as we move forward. Of course, you know that we want to transform hard conversations into teachable moments. And so I'm going to offer a little psychoeducation. I am going to offer a story so that we can apply this knowledge. And then I am going to give you, as with every episode, an adventure challenge, something that you can lean into this upcoming week for yourself before we close the episode. So if you are ready to transform those hard conversations, very specifically around your own discomfort, your own feelings that you don't want to feel when you come around this different kind of person, I am going to be leaning into that with you today. You are not going to be alone, my friend. Gather your journal or a really good friend to dialogue with about what comes up for you in this particular episode, because of course, you know by now, I am so curious. Are you ready to play?
Welcome to Triggered. Can we play with that? You know that moment when your emotions ramp up in an instant, leaving you feeling helpless, frozen, or out of control? In that moment, you've been emotionally hijacked, the very definition of triggered. And I want to ask you, can we play with that? I'm Nina L. Garcia, drama therapist and empowerment coach of Houston Creative Arts Therapy. Join me as we discover ways to empower you and the people who mean the most to you to transform hard conversations into teachable moments. Triggered. Real playful, real respectful, real empowered.
Let's take a breath. So every episode that we do in the empowered human community is about how do we lean into our edge, right? Which means like, how do we practice being courageous by leaning into our edge and going into that space that says, oh, this is out of my comfort zone. Oh, right? That's what we're going to be doing. And of course, because I want to empower you all, we are going to talk about how do you transition from powered to empowered. Most of us who are going to be listening into this podcast and are doing this work are coming from powered lifestyles, powered ways of viewing the world. And with powered ways of viewing the world, we are willing to take away our own agency and to take away the agency of someone else. That's what happens in a powered world. But in an empowered world, we are willing to acknowledge the differences between myself and someone else, right? The difference between you and me and you and someone else. And then we build bridges of understanding and we work to build those bridges of understanding, right? If only they came so easy. Most of us need to do the work. And so listening into this episode is going to be able to help you with that work just a little bit, right? We won't be able to cover every facet, but we will be able to explore at least one, moving from powered to empowered as you explore your own discomfort at people who are different than you. So first things first, because I want you to be able to put this episode in the context of your own life, I want you to get out that journal or click save in your brain at the actual label that you are going to be exploring today. That label or facet of humanity that you really struggle with. And again, it could be age, it could be sexual orientation, it could be ethnicity, it could be nationality, it could be so many different things about how a human being humans, and you're struggling with it. And here's the thing, if you're the kind of person who's like, I'm struggling with it, but it's not my struggle, it's because of them, I'm going to blame them, right? That's fine. This is probably not the episode for you. We really work on how to transition from that powered way of thinking to an empowered way of thinking. So I'm going to offer you some things in this episode. I'm going to offer you some things. I want you to put them on the table between you and I. If it works for you, friend, I want you to run with it. If it doesn't work for you, you can trash it, right? I'm going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And if you're curious about it and you want to play with it some more, then whatever I offer in today's episode, I hope you pick it up. I hope you look at it and I hope you make it yours. You make it something that can work for you. That is what we're going to be doing as we lean into today's episode. So after you've gotten down the label of what it is, right? Whatever that facet is, I'm now going to invite you to think about why is it or what is it that you're feeling when you feel all that discomfort? Because here's the thing. There's either usually one of two reasons why you feel that discomfort. Okay, so walk along the path with me. People typically feel discomfort over whatever that label is because they've either had an uncomfortable lived experience with that person, right? That type of person, that facet of humanity, or they have been taught that they should feel uncomfortable when they come into contact with that type, that facet of humanity. So I really want you to ask yourself this next question as we walk along this path, leaning into our edge here. Do you have a lived experience of discomfort with that actual facet of humanity? An actual experience in which somebody minimized you or put you down or put you in a dangerous space or harmed you? Do you actually have a lived experience of that? Or is your discomfort because you were taught that you should feel uncomfortable around that shouldn't exist as a facet of humanity, and that you should minimize, misrepresent, or even outright reject that facet of humanity? I really want you to think about whether you have a lived experience or whether you've been taught about how you should feel about that experience. The reason why I want you to know this, of course, is that one of the big things that we find when you're transitioning from powered ways of living to empowered ways of living is needing to understand the difference between lived experience and what you've been taught. And what we typically flag are the shoulds. I want you, my friend, to flag your shoulds. You say, well, I should feel this way, or I shouldn't feel this way. Flag those shoulds, because that is a really good sign that you might have been taught that there's a particular story around this facet of humanity, and that there's a particular way that you should act or think or feel when you come into contact with it. And here's the thing. I'm not trying to tell you one way or the other how you should feel. But what I am doing unequivocally is I am inviting you to assess whether you want to feel that way. Regardless of whether it's lived experience or whether it is something you were taught. That is my next question to you. Get this down in your journal. The next step that I want you to move forward with on this path is, if you don't like how you feel, when you come into contact, if you don't like the feeling, would you be open to changing it? Would you be open to exploring how you can change that feeling within you first? Here is why I put it that way, folks. I want you to think about transparently what the issue is. The issue is you feel uncomfortable. That's a transparent issue, right? We can't deny it. You feel uncomfortable. It is what it is. What we don't know is why. Now, hopefully you've asked yourself that question and you've discovered, oh, that's from my lived experience, or it's something I was taught. So then we move on to the next phase. I want you to think about responsibility. Responsibility is your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. It's the only thing that you can actually control. I know, shocking, right? Your being responsible means you are willing to say, I can control, or I'm willing to explore learning how to control or redefine my relationship with my thoughts, my feelings, and my behaviors. Because here is the reality, folks. No one else can control your thoughts, feelings, or behaviors. It is only you, my friend. It's only you. And so this is really important when we think about, Nina, I'm listening because I feel so uncomfortable when I come into contact with this person. I hear you. That discomfort is real. Do you want to keep feeling that way? No, Nina, I don't want to keep feeling that way. Are you open to learning other ways of playing with this and exploring with this? Yes, Nina, I am. Fantastic. Let's keep going. Because here's the next step. Okay. If you are saying, yes, Nina, I want to be responsible. I want to be responsible for my thoughts, feelings, behaviors. My hat is off to you, empowered human. Let's keep going. A willingness to be responsible for those things means that you are also willing to recognize when you are casting your discomfort on someone else. Most of us will have been taught in a powered way of living that it is okay to reject someone else or to make them feel smaller so that they will remove themselves from your environment. And when they remove themselves from your environment, what you actually get to feel is relief. Because now you don't have to feel that discomfort. You're no longer coming into contact with that type of human, with that facet of humanity. And so you feel like, oh my gosh, I've done it. And this is exactly what I was taught to do. If I just put them down enough or reject them enough, I won't have to deal with it. Here's the tricky thing about that, my friend. This also means that you have been taught that it's okay to victimize somebody else and that it's okay to put somebody else down. And here's the thing is you may say, well, I am okay with that. But do you know what you end up feeling when you do that? That's actually what I want you to focus on. When you reject someone else, put someone else down, do you know what you're feeling inside? I'm willing to bet that it's not butterflies and sunshine. I'm willing to bet that what you actually feel is anger, disgust, fear, shame, guilt, that you feel a lot of these uncomfortable feelings. And what you end up doing is, of course, you don't want to feel them. You put them off on somebody else until maybe that person makes themselves disappear. And then you're like, I don't have to feel those things anymore. But guess what? The next time somebody like that comes into your world, it triggers the same thing. That story doesn't actually go away, no matter how many people who are of a different race, different ethnicity, different sexual orientation, different socioeconomic status, different fill in the blank here. No matter how many of them you put down or rid from your life, it does not change that the button still exists within you and it can still be pushed. And here's why this is important. If it's not apparent already, this means you are vulnerable to whatever is going on outside of you all the time. You will have that vulnerability to being triggered. And so my question is not, do you want to believe what you want to believe? It is, do you want to have that vulnerability for the rest of your life because of what you've been taught or what you've experienced up to this point? Now, there are many different caveats and different ways of exploring this, but I want to be really clear. When you think about this type of person with this type of label, this is not a direct harm story. This is an idea of a person. And so if you are talking about, and you've labeled somebody like, well, my abuser, well, yeah, it makes sense that you would not want to continue to connect with your abuser, right? That's not a different type of person. That's a person that hurt you, right? Somebody who assaulted you, that's not a different type of person. That's a person who hurt you. And so if your label is of a person who actually hurt you, right? We want to put that label to the side just for now, because I want you to take that to therapy. Okay, friend? I want you to really do some personal work on that. This episode, as we move forward, as I've been taking you through step by step, we want to look at a story about a facet of humanity. So let's keep going. Already you've looked at this, and up to this point, you're saying, Nina, I'm willing to be responsible for my feelings. Nina, I recognize that if I keep casting them off on somebody else, even if I get rid of 100, 200, 7,000 types of this person, 7,000 versions of this particular label, Nina, what you're telling me is that I'm still going to have that button within me. It doesn't matter how many people I reject or get rid of, that I'll actually can still feel that way. And I am telling you unequivocally, yes, yes. If we do not redefine your relationship and your body's relationship to your experience of that version of humanity, you will continue to be vulnerable to that. Why? Why would you do that to yourself? You have likely been taught that it is okay to remove other people or other things so that you can feel okay. But actually, I want you to flip the script on this, friend. I want you to imagine what would happen if we actually changed the story within you. If we actually gave you the tools to say, wow, I really want to redefine how I look at this facet of humanity so that I am never triggered by it. No matter where I go, that I am not triggered. And just so we're clear, what is a trigger? Emotionally hijacked, y'all. You cannot make the conscious decisions that you want to after you've been emotionally hijacked, because your brain says, we've got to fight or flight or freeze or fawn. We can't handle this, right? You're emotionally hijacked. And I know some of y'all are like me, 100%. That's me. That's why you're listening, right? That's why we do these episodes. I have been there with you. This is no stranger to me, and I know you're no stranger to it. But as we continue on this path, yes, what I want to ask you is, if you could, would you be open to saying, I don't want that trigger to exist as a button within my body anymore. I want to liberate myself from that as a trigger, Nina. I don't want that as a trigger anymore. To which I say, congratulations, you empowered human, as you move along this path. I'm proud of you. But genuinely, it takes courage. It takes courage to be willing to say that I'm going to acknowledge that I felt uncomfortable by this type of human being. And you know what, Nina? I'm going to acknowledge that I don't want to harbor that forever. I don't deserve to harbor that forever. No, you don't. So instead of us coming at it from a powered dynamic in which we remove the other, I actually want to invite you to come at it from an empowered dynamic, in which you acknowledge that the other exists, and then you say, wow, if I'm uncomfortable that this other type of human exists, why does that exist within me? I want you to, here we go, bring out those journals again, folks. Here's the next step to exploring and leaning in on this one. Ask yourself, step one. I hope you already did, first off, the lived experience versus the stories you've been told. But ask yourself, in one line, the thought that pops up when you think about that particular label that you're exploring. What is it that you believe is true about that label? Question mark. That's my first question. What is it that you believe is true? Second, is it true about all people with that label? Is it true about one person if it was a lived experience that you had? Maybe it was more than one. I don't know your story, but you know your story. Or was it, right, that last one? Is it true? That's what we're asking ourselves in the second question. Was it something you were taught to be true, to believe was true? What is the belief that you have around this, and is it true? If it is not, and I'm going to tell you, y'all, it is likely not true. No type, facet of humanity is a monolith, no matter how much you've been taught that it is. None of them. Everybody humans differently. In as many ways as there are to be Christian, to be gay, to be of a low socioeconomic status, to be disabled, to have a disability, to have a disorder, of all the different ways you can have it. As many people as there are who you can have a different label with, there are that many ways to express it. And that is just true. Right? We know this to be true. You could pop up a YouTube video, an Insta, a TikTok, it doesn't matter. There are so many different ways to express different facets of humanity. So as you are asking yourself, where does this idea come from? Right? What is it that I believe about this? And is it true? If it is not true about every single being who would have that label, then I want you to ask yourself, how can I begin to redefine my relationship to this facet of humanity? So now we're going to get into a little bit of story time. Typically, I bring you in a lot sooner to this. I was called to do something a little bit differently in this episode, so I hope that you are bearing with me. Here's the true story. I have heard this in person. I have heard this through clients, and I have heard this with friends, like as a secondary story. I've heard this in many different ways. The moment where somebody, and in particular because it's Pride Month, this is also on my heart and in my mind. The reality of when we see queer people, and for those of you like queer, what's my right? Lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgenders, there's so many different ways that I could go over, different facets of humanity, right? Ways to human. And somebody will experience that. And the line that they will say, and here's the line, and you may have said it or you may have heard it, and there's no judgment, but I want us to be hella curious about it, y'all. The line that is, I just don't understand why they have to be so in your face about it. Like, I get it. They're queer. Like, I get it. I love it. Like, you want to be queer. You are queer. Like, I get it. Like, that's a way that people human, but like, why do they have to be so in your face about it? And that is the core crux of the story, right? It's like, I feel, right? Subtext here. I feel so uncomfortable at the way they are existing, period. Your brain does not need to have an actual lived experience with something in order to say that it is a perceived threat or that it should be looked at as dangerous, because it could be. All you have to have is an idea that it is. All you have to have been taught is a story that it is. So when we think about why is it that queer people are so in your face about it, my question to you is, are they really so in your face about it? When was the last time that a queer person, in this example, right, actually physically got in your face and was like, I'm gay and I'm here to stay, right? Like, when was it that it actually happened? Because for most of us, what we're actually going to find is just in their existence, they walk down the street as humans do. They put on an outfit that expresses their humanity as humans do. They hold hands with their partner as humans do. They take care of their children and their families, and they show up for work and they do their job as humans do. What is it that's really so in your face? And really, I would want you to ask yourself that. What is it that feels so threatening? Go back to those questions. What is it that you believe is true? Question mark. Second question, is it in your lived experience true for every human being with that label? And if you could say, oh, you know what, actually, let me rethink this. Let me redefine this within myself, because you know what, I don't want to feel this way. Well, then guess what, human being? You will be at the point in which you are redefining your relationship to this idea. And you are saying, I want to be responsible for how I am feeling. You are going to be owning your feelings and you are going to be responsible for them, which means you can remove that trigger button. It is possible. You can do it, so that no matter how many times a queer person, a person of a different race, a person of a different ethnicity, a person of a different religion or political background, or so on and so forth, no matter how many times that person pops up, you will no longer be triggered. Why? Because you will have redefined your belief around what is triggering about that human being. That is one of so many ways for you to move from a powered and oppressive way of existing and treating others, right, to an empowered way of existing and treating yourself and others. So if that sounds like it is your jam, then welcome to the Empowered Human community. I'm your host, Nina. You matter. This is the ultimate lesson of this episode, is that you matter. And I believe that human beings matter. And so when I say to you that I want you to heal your humanity, what I mean is, in the context of this episode, I want you to know that you can heal the harmful narrative that exists within you, whether that person is in front of you or not. So long as that harmful narrative exists as the trigger button within you, anyone from the outside can come in, and just walking by, just living, just existing will trigger the button. They won't even have to say or do anything to you directly. That's how harmful this narrative is. It will harm you, and then it will invite you to harm someone else potentially. So redefine your relationship to these ideas and to that label that you chose at the beginning of this episode, because you freaking matter. You matter so much that when you can heal your humanity, what ripples out is healing. When you love all the stories within you and you can show up with that, that is what ripples out to humanity. When you heal the humanity within you, you can show up for others and help them heal the humanity within themselves. And when we do this, we can do it for the world at large. It is a process. It is work. And I want progress, not perfection, my folks, but I am absolutely inviting you. Here we are at the Adventure Challenge, right? To lean into your edge this upcoming week. I want you to think about that label that you have. And I want you to do the following. I want you to explore how you can engage with it and how you can help diversify the narrative. Whatever narrative it is that exists within you, it's probably pretty rigid, right? It probably says there's a very black and white way, one way to think about things. But if this upcoming week you do anything to diversify those narratives, you can help flip the script and begin to desensitize that trigger button in an intentional way. Intentionally, because you know that you do matter, and so do the people around you. And so anything you do to diversify that narrative, and I'm going to give you some examples, but I'm also going to put a link in the show notes to a very particular challenge we have this whole month. But here's what I mean as an example. Think about that label you have. I want you to think about, if you're going to diversify the stories you have around that, you can do that privately, publicly, somewhere in the middle. You can do that through movies, through music, through food, particular restaurants that you can go to, particular events that might be happening in your community, right? Through Meetup, through whatever the social things are, right? Check your Facebook events, whatever the case is. You can lean into your edge and diversify the stories you have to desensitize that trigger, so that no matter who walks into your world from the outside, you will no longer be triggered by the story, that harmful narrative that exists within you for some reason, right? That why it was put there, I don't know that reason. But if you're still listening, you're here because you're saying, I don't want to feel that way, and I want to do something about it. You absolutely can do something about it. You matter, and healing your humanity matters. So let's do something about it. This upcoming week, I want you to lean your edge. Do that challenge. If you do, tag me at Drama Therapist Nina and put the hashtag empowered human in there. For those of you who are like, hey, you mentioned that there was a very particular kind of quest this month. It is June. It is Pride Month, right? And if you are struggling with queer humanity, if that's a label that you're leaning into, whether you yourself identify as queer or you don't identify as queer, right? You can still struggle with that label or with facets of that label. If that is you and you want to lean in to your edge this month and join the queering quest, we do have that. All you have to do to enter into that quest is show how you are exploring queer humanity this month and hashtag empowered human in there at Drama Therapist Nina. The hashtag and the tag that will put you into an entry for the queering quest. And for those of you who are out there who are like, that sounds interesting, that could be fun, there are prizes. you will receive the Alok V. Menon book bundle, which I'm very excited. It just came in the mail today and it looks great. And you will also get, drumroll please, a mini empowerment session with me. What? I said it. I said it. A mini empowerment session with me. All you have to do is hashtag empowered human at Drama Therapist Nina, however you are leaning into your edge. If you're like, I'm still not quite sure how to lean into that, what does that look like? What can I do? If you go to my Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina, in the link in the bio, it actually says like sign up for the Queering Quest. You can click that and it will show you a whole chart that will help direct your journey if that's what you need. If you're more freestyle, freeform, you know what you're going to do to lean into your edge with queer humanity this month, by all means, right? But if you need a little support, I've got the chart in there for you. All you need to do is enter is exactly what I've said. And of course, all this will be in the show notes, you beautiful empowered human you. So without further ado, that is what we planned for today, folks. So thank you so much for listening in and to being willing to explore your triggers as a human being, right? It takes freaking courage to be able to do this. Right? It is not an easy thing to do, and a lot of people are going to misunderstand it. But I hope not you. I hope we're on the same page, and I hope we're moving forward. If we're not, definitely message me. I want to know, how can I clarify? But my final call to you is, if you know someone who is struggling with feelings around people who are different than they are, and you think they might benefit from hearing this episode, please share this episode with them. Let's get the dialogue going so that we can continue to transform hard conversations into teachable moments and continue to develop from a powered way of existing to an empowered way of existing. Thank you so much for listening in. Otherwise, stay curious, y'all.